Welcome everybody. I'm Mark Lucchese, also known as Mark with the Mic, right? I got my script here, it's short. Thank you for coming to our fourth quarter meeting of the Burlingame Historical Society. I did not go to BHS, but Kathy and myself, it's great just having my wife and kids here in front of me. And anyway, I didn't go to Burlingame, but Kathy and I have a great loyalty to Burlingame High. My brother went. He was graduated the class of 71. My 3 children went there. We've got a great panel. I'm going to introduce them after the slideshow. Okay, here we go. This is a current photo of Burlingame High. Next year, Burlingame High will turn 100. Its sister school to the south, San Mateo High, turned 100 over 20 years ago. San Mateo opened on September 15th, 1902 at 56 Ellsworth in downtown San Mateo. For the first 20 years, all students living within Burlingame's borders took the bus to downtown San Mateo to attend school. Next slide, Jen. There's the bus they took to school. Can you imagine that? That's when it was real busing, I guess, back then. So, back in the early 1920s, San Mateo High was seriously overcrowded. The high school building then in use was built for 350 students, but it had an enrollment of close to 500. Something had to give. A school bond was passed and construction for Burlingame High began in April of 1922. However, it was not yet known as Burlingame High. For the first several years, it went by the name of San Mateo High North Branch. Next slide, Jen. So the new school was built in 1927. The new school was the pride and joy of the community, designed by a prominent architect, William H. Weeks. Weeks also...
1923.
I will not take I don't take the typos. Thank you, Linda. Please hold your questions to the end. We can discuss. We can debate that. Linda?
I'm letting you know what it's like to be...
Linda, we've got all these books here that I have to be reprinted, okay? And Linda, if you don't quiet down, I'll send you to see the dean. So thank you. Mr. McLaughlin, okay. So the school bond was passed and construction for Burlingame High began in April of 1922.
Correct.
Okay. However, it was not yet known as Burlingame High. For the first several years, it went by the name San Mateo High Northern Branch, okay? So now the new school was built. Oh, I got you. I see what you're saying.
I think
it's a misprint.
The picture is...
And it was a joy of the community designed by prominent architect William Weeks. Weeks also designed the 1909 former Bank of Burlingame building that now houses Flights, on the corner of Burlingame Ave in California. So he also built McKinley School and the Santa Cruz Boardwalk, as well as several Carnegie libraries. So, big time back, right? So in 1927, San Mateo High's new building opened on North Delaware. Its northern branch was renamed Burlingame High. This was a time of great competition between the two cities. Even San Mateo Drive was renamed California Drive during the 20s after it crossed into Burlingame. This competition has never really ceased and was and is most often evident in the Little League game held each November. What a great program, huh? Isn't that cool? Good color.
Good price.
So for the first half of the 20th century, there were only 2 high schools in San Mateo Union High School District, San Mateo and Burlingame. Students who lived as far north as San Bruno took the 40 line to school at Burlingame High until Cappuccino opened in 1950. There's the 40 line. Okay. The 50s was a time of rapid population growth on the peninsula, and 4 high schools opened in rapid succession within 7 years. Hillsdale, Mills, and Aragon opened in 1955, 1958, and 1961, respectively. The now closed Crestmore High in the hills of San Bruno opened in 1962, so that was some rapid expansion for the peninsula. And this here is an aerial slide taken in 1927. It shows the high school in the area east of it towards 101 that is now known as Berlin Gables. Not Lion Ho, but Berlin Gables, right? We're a little bit farther over there. So anyway, the semicircle row of trees at the lower right of the photo surrounding the end of the Frank and Harriet Carolyn's polo fields that once occupied the property. That's that circle down on the right-hand side. $60,000 of the $360,000 school bond issued to build Burlingame High went to the Carolyns for the purchase of their land. I guess that was a pretty good deal. Today it is, anyway. So, okay, next slide is the 1906 map of the area, and this map shows the polo fields. Below the dark buildings below the polo fields is a map, or it's the greenhouses of the McClellan's flower business that was over on Bloomfield, which was just a couple of blocks where Ryan here used to live. Right? Yeah, kind of backs up to it. Okay, next slide, Jen. Hey, how about that for a Super Bowl, was it a halftime, right? The marching band, the 1929, that's the 1929 marching band. School spirit and extracurricular activities have typically been very popular. In the early 1930s, of a total student population of 350 students, 93, or nearly a quarter, were in band, 70 students were in orchestra, 50 in a Latin club. Yeah, that got me too. Yeah, okay. And 88% of the students purchased student body cards. The Latin club. Okay, it was reported that students were so enthusiastic about extracurricular school organizations that limitations had to be imposed on schedules to prevent fatigue. Oh, my kids are getting tired. Okay, so here are a few of the activities. The girls' swim team from 1930.
Risque.
Go ahead, Jen. This is the journalism club from 1930. Let's see. Could we go back one, Jen, please? That,
Are you in there, Linda?
should be the Homemakers Club in there somewhere.
No, it's the next one.
It is? Okay. That's the graduating class, I think, of 1930. That's the class photo.
It says homemakers. It says homemakers.
Okay, holy smokes. So, what the heck happened to the Homemakers Club? Okay, maybe Kathy, you should have enrolled in that, okay? And let's see, next slide, Jen, we have the 1931 field hockey yet, go to the, was that the class photo? That's 1930 class photo, sorry, I got a bad angle here. Wow. There's the field hockey team, 1931 field hockey.
That's great.
Let's see, that's the high school field and gym as seen in 1932. But what's the math? 32 from 2020? That was the old gym? That's a long time ago.
That was designed by Ernest Norberg, the one who did our library. Yeah, and then it was...
Jen, next one. And this is the 1936 girls basketball team. It's like right out of Hoosiers, huh? So the students were also active in their community. During World War II, they raised $173,000 to help the war effort by purchasing a bomber. Okay? Their fundraising went so far over the goal, they also purchased a land jeep, an amphibious jeep, and an ambulance plane. Boy. Pretty busy skies. Okay, so the 50s brought a more peaceful time of sock hops and soda fountains. And that on the left-hand side there is Hal's soda fountain, where a Safeway is currently, located. And wait a minute, Jen, go back. I have to get one plug here, okay? Here's the pointer. You can barely see it, but right there, that says Jim Super. That's my dad's store. Okay, Jen, so there's Hal's, and that was a big hangout place. And here's some girls at Hal's, the co-eds at Hal's. Note their short bangs, which many girls wore to emulate the First Lady, Mimi Eisenhower. Yeah. So you learn something every day, don't you? In the Historical Society. And lastly, in 1973, the school celebrated its 50th anniversary with a big hoopla, which brings us here tonight, 50 years later. And our guests tonight are going to talk about those last 50 years, more or less. So, let me introduce tonight's panel. Currently a senior, representing the class of 2023, Ava Geary. 37 years teaching at Burlingame and retired in 2009, Glenn Morgan. Coming off the bench tonight and replacing John Horgan, who's over there announcing the Panther game, is from the class of 1995, Ryan Ofield, known as Mr. O. I wonder if you really need introduction, but anyway, a 1967 graduate, and also went on to teach for 27 years at Burlingame, retiring in 2014, Linda Vickery McLaughlin. And the only other Sarah grad in the room that I think anyway, maybe we have another one here, but the only other Sarah grad, 1971 grad from Sarah, the son of a longtime dean of boys, Vic Mangini, Jerry Mangini. And rounding it out for us, Big Rusty Newton, 1974 grad and the current president of the Burlingame Alumni Association. Thank you guys, thanks for coming tonight, all right? And Rusty's from San Ramon, coming over from San Ramon with his wife tonight, so I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, his wife, Diane. She's the...
Class of 74.
Yes, correct.
Good evening, Eva.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's very good. So how's your senior year going?
It's been very busy. I've never been busier, but there's so much to look forward to. There's still so many fun things that have happened already. Yeah.
Great. So can you share with us your kind of a BHS family tree? I know your sister Ella went there. Did anybody else go to BHS?
I just have one sister, Ella, and she graduated last year.
Yeah. So that was it for the family tree?
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good limb. Okay. Very good. Okay. So can you look back at the last 4 years and maybe tell us a couple of memorable moments that you may have had?
For sure. I mean, starting recently, and then I guess I'll go back in time, but just a few days ago in my AP Gov class, we had a really fun simulation where we pretended it was the Supreme Court Justice nomination hearings, and everyone stood up in front of the class, and we created all sorts of wacky backstories, so that was a lot of fun. The dances have been really enjoyable. Freshman year, the students completely planned and executed the dance at CSM for the winter formal. It was like a space theme, and they put so much effort into it. And then we had our prom last spring, which was really exciting, at San Francisco City Hall, which is a location they've been trying to get for quite a while. It was gorgeous. So I loved that. It was all lit up. And they had this like gambling table. They had a dance floor. It was really elaborate. It was a 20s theme, which I think was kind of an ode to the school as well, now that we're turning 100. Yeah, there were so many fun things. I don't want to leave anything off.
That's right, we might circle back to
Yeah.
that. So how about some favorite teachers and classes?
Oh, I could talk about this for quite a while.
Don't talk too long.
I have
It's
a lot
okay.
of favorite
All right.
teachers. Yeah. First of all, my yearbook advisor, Miss Riley, I'm the editor of the yearbook this year with one other student. And she's been my teacher for 4 years, so I've had her the longest. And she's been such a mentor to me. She really tries to connect personally with her students, and she's very fashionable, so I respect her in a lot of ways. I have a math teacher, Miss Silkowski, who made math fun, even though I'm not a math person. She brought brownies for her students. She solicits math memes and loves to share those. I had Mr. Chin, sophomore year. He put so much effort into his class. He would leave comments on comments on comments on assignments. He hosted movie screenings for students over Zoom. So even though school was online, you could really feel the love that he had for his class.
Great. How's the yearbook going? Are you on schedule?
Yeah, we're doing pretty well. I was just taking photos of the play yesterday, actually. They had their last dress rehearsal, so that was exciting. And I've been taking photos of the football games. That's been really fun. And we have a full archive in the yearbook class of yearbooks from every year and every decade. And so we've definitely been combing through all of those this year. It was so exciting to see the images, to see the fashion, to learn all sorts of things, like how they used to bring a live panther to pose with the cheerleaders. All sorts of, yeah. I'm sure you could talk about that more. But yes, we're definitely going to try and include that history in this year's book.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to give you a couple more minutes here, because she and her sister, with the help of Megan over at City Hall, helped found Generation Voter, which is a pretty cool, well, tell them about it.
Yes.
Generation Voter.
I've been an intern with the City Clerk of Burlingame for the past 2 years, and my sister helped me start this project, and now my very good friend Sylvie is working on it with me. It's designed to be to empower young people to get involved in government and to make an impact on local and national elections, so we're really trying to stress local government too. We've had a social media campaign and reached 12,000 Instagram accounts. We've had an educational website that we're updating on a regular basis, so there'll be a new post about an inside look at the elections office this week. And then we've been doing community outreach, like voter registration drives, and so far we've registered around 260 students to vote.
And this is all from a girl that can't vote yet.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that.
And so much more. We just had an I Voted sticker contest, so I could talk about this for a while. We had 175 entries from people who were 18 or younger, so that was a lot of fun to look through. We had some I Voted moms, we had a Boom, I Voted, and all sorts of really beautiful, artful stickers. So we printed thousands of those, and they'll be available at the polls November 8th.
Great, that's wonderful. Good job, thank you. Glenn, you ready? Glenn, I put here that you live in San Carlos, but you told me you live in Belmont, so when did you move? Okay. Glenn, I mentioned earlier that you taught at Burlingame for 37 years. What years were those? From when to when?
1972 to 2009.
And how many principals did you have the pleasure of working
I
with?
knew you were going to ask me that question, sorry.
Trick question.
I was hired by Dr. Richard Williams. He had been a teacher at Hillsdale, where I graduated, but I didn't know him. And Larry Teixeira was next, followed by Jerry Aragoni, Matt Bigger, and finally Chris Halligan.
Whoa, five principals you worked for. You wore them out, huh?
Yes. I was known to be a very trying teacher.
And Burlingame High was your one and only school that you ever taught at?
Yes.
Student teaching as well?
Student teaching there, and then became a teacher when my master teacher decided to take a sabbatical, which was something that I don't know whether I never had a sabbatical.
Oh, I did.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Oh, yes, I did.
Linda, you're going to get your time.
Hungry mouths to feed at home, and I had to. But no, I never did have a sabbatical.
What classes did you teach?
I taught English, and as well as I was the yearbook and at times the newspaper advisor.
So that was kind of your extracurricular stuff, add-on to something?
Yes, I can tell you that being yearbook advisor became, an all-consuming kind of thing.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of, before Linda came along, of doing both for a while, and it actually sent me to the hospital. So.
Wow. Yeah. How many years were you yearbook advisor?
Over 30. I suppose I should sit down and count, but over 30.
Over the course of 37 years, you had to see a lot of changes in cultural changes, right? With the students and parents, etc. Dress codes would change. I don't know if the skirts got longer or shorter, but something happened, right? Baggy pants, thin pants, all that kind of stuff. Can you share with us some changes you've seen?
I was never really a fashion person, but I can attest to the fact that yes. Going back to Burlingame every year, I help out with the AP testing in May, and with my colleague, Miss Elaine Correa, and we note the changes every year. I was told finally when I asked, I didn't complain, I just asked about the dress code. They said, Glenn, there is no dress code. So
Yeah. What about parents' attitudes over the years where they, there was a time when I would get dropped off at school and the priests were in charge, okay? And now things have changed a little bit and maybe the priests aren't so much in charge or the lay teachers don't have as much power as maybe they used to have. Did you see any changes like that?
No, but I felt I became a better teacher when I became a parent. So that taught me a lot about, and my son was able to attend Burlingame for a year and a half. Had Linda as a teacher, and it was a very pleasant experience. Ultimately, he begged to go back to Carmont, where we pulled him out during a rough period at that school.
Yeah.
That's the period in which Dangerous Minds was the...
All right. They held it at the school here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but Carmont's doing fine now, and have a good teacher friend.
Can you recall any notable students or any athletes that stand out to you?
Yes, I've got a list of folks here, and I tried to focus on those of different qualities than just the so-called superstars. First, Hannah Hart, who was one of my editors, author of a book called Buffering, and she's a well-known podcaster. Her podcast is called My Drunken Kitchen. So the concept is that she gets drunk and cooks. So I've only been able to sit through a couple of those because the story arc is the same. Another student of note is Grandpa Choco. He's a puppeteer for the Henson Company, and he's currently appearing as of last week at Knott's Berry Farm. They have a show there. It's called Puppet Up. Peter Hartlaw, whose dad taught math and science at Burlingame for many years, and just had breakfast with him a week or so ago at Copenhagen. He's a wonderful San Francisco Chronicle writer at a time when, unfortunately, the Chron is facing rough times.
Sure they are, all the newspapers.
Fred Wolfgram is the principal at Peninsula High School. That's the continuation school, the brand new facility over in, I guess it's called Hotel Row, or what are we calling Old Bay Shore now?
Old Bay Shore.
Yeah. When I say Old Bay Shore, it's like saying to folks, well, I came over on the Nimitz, no one knows what it's like. Or the J. Arthur Younger Freeway. But his son and my grandson play football at Sarah High School.
Great.
And Freddie and I talk about old things. He was a quarterback here for our football team. Diana Agron, some of you know, of actress from Glee and other things. Adam Klein is past alumnus of the year, but he's also was the winner of Survivor a few seasons ago. A close friend, Brian Switzer, is a trumpet player. He's the music teacher at Carmont, but he also played trumpet for Train and Muse, and currently is the trumpet player for Bobby Ware's Wolfpack. And he's playing sold-out shows all across the U.S. this fall. But I can't mention past students without mentioning Ryan Oakfield here.
I think I was going to make the list.
Well, I had brought my pencil. I was going to talk about John Horgan, whose dad was my high school counselor, but told me never to become a teacher. But Jeff Tadeusz back here in my first class.
Great.
And Rusty Newsom, my first sports editor down here.
And you kept teaching after that?
I'm very old. I just turned 75 yesterday. And Diane Ragazzino Newsom.
Art of the film.
And wasn't there another class now?
Art of the
I for period 18, in the first year of teaching, we had a flexible, what do you call it? Creative use of time, the CUT program.
The pod schedule.
And Diane was in that class that ended at 4:20 in the afternoon. Yes. Why is 4:20? There's something about that number.
I remember that in my head.
Anyway.
Football starts at 3.
I hope if I left anything out, anyone out, there's ex-students here today, so.
That was pretty comprehensive, you had a lot of cool people. Yeah.
Well, I want to try and include as many folks as possible, so.
Yeah. So Glenn, did you have a favorite place to hang on campus or on the avenue when you were teaching? Take a little break, let's walk over to someplace on the Ave, or go hide.
We had a closed campus, Mike.
Yeah, but it wasn't closed for teachers, right?
No, for me, and again, it's a bad habit, but I still don't eat lunch because for me, lunch was just a transition between period 4 and 5. And we were often covering events during lunch,
Yeah.
and students need their cameras and their equipment, or they were working on a deadline.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to sound noble about it, I just still don't eat lunch because of a bad habit I picked up
Yeah,
here in those
it happens,
years.
right. So are you still connected to BHS in any way?
Well,
Visit
I
the school?
help out with the AP testing in May, and meet with some past teachers every Tuesday at Copenhagen for breakfast.
Wonderful. So Glenn, your last year when you retired, what was that, 2009? Is that
Yes.
2009?
Yeah.
Who won the Little Big Game the last year you taught?
Mark Burlingame always won the.
Oh, okay. Good answer, Glenn.
That's all right.
Glenn, thank you.
I don't have access to the stats.
Thank you very much. Okay, our pinch hitter for John Horgan tonight, Mr. Ryan Oldfield, class of 95. Good evening, Ryan.
Good evening.
Into that microphone, don't be bashful.
I'm trying.
Okay, good. So Ryan, you graduated from BHS in 95. I think you went to CSM for a while, and then you went to, you transferred to Sac State, and then you came back to San Francisco State to get a teacher credential? Is that correct?
Yeah, NDNU for the credential, and now I'm at State for my master's.
Yes, and what are you doing nowadays, Ryan?
Teaching and reading.
Where are you teaching?
I'm over at Mercy Burlingame. I teach seniors. This is my ninth year.
That's wonderful. How many years?
Ninth year there, 11th year full-time teaching.
Congratulations on that. That's great. So, Brian, I know you have a pretty extensive BHS family tree. Why don't you tell us about it?
I do. So my dad's dad and my mom's mom both graduated, which kind of created a unique situation that ended up in me. So my...
Mark,
I'm sorry? Oh,
yeah, your dad and my mom were twins.
your dad and my dad and your mom were
They both
twins.
graduated.
Yes, yeah.
It's amazing.
It's far too many people that can actually have. I have some highlights, but it gets a little expensive. My dad's dad used to race his car against the planes that were landing at SFO after he got off school. So he graduated 32. My mom's mom graduated 38. My dad was 67, the youngest of two older sisters. I'm trying to think of, so they all went there. Forgive me for people moving out.
That's okay.
It's a lot of family. So yeah, it's.
What about your sister, Erin?
Oh, and my sister Erin, that's one of them, yes, my sister. She's 45.
I sent these questions to you a week ago. Maybe I was a little surprised tonight. Okay, Ryan, so in 1967, your dad, the late great Duffy, my close friend, he passed away just a couple of years ago. What was he voted in the yearbook? He got something in the yearbook.
Oh, what was he? I wasn't ready for that one.
I know.
That's a very specific one.
He was voted most humorous.
Most humorous. I can't tell you he was very proud of
1967.
being on the undefeated
Yes, he
team
was.
and then never having played it down.
Yes. Oh, boy. So, Ryan, share with us some of the memorable students you hung with, and the coaches and the teachers, of course.
The teachers to my left and to my right is my sophomore English teacher and my senior English teacher, and this is one of the things, I can close my eyes and walk you to their classroom from here without missing a beat. I think it's in some form, but Mr. Morgan, Glenn, I've never called him Glenn before, so it's a little awkward for me. We're got around. But I remember he had, I don't know if you remember when the CDs were new, they came in these cardboard rectangles. He had his whole room, which was massive, it was a music room, lined in CDs, and I actually trusted his taste. I loved all of these. Not only was it cool, like a teenager's bedroom in a certain way, but it was good music, and I kind of actually modeled my room after that idea for a long time. Not to get too much information. Ms. McLaughlin, Linda went to school with my dad, graduated the same year, and both the cases, I can't tell you how much I remember wanting to care like they cared, and later on, I didn't know at the time, but that ended up meaning I wanted to learn like they learned and teach like they teach. So it's just the warmth and the enjoyment to show up to class, that's not too common, and they made it common. So Furco was a great one, Devo was a great one, Kishore was a great English teacher. So yeah, there was just a lot of basically only positive memories, and that's hard to say for a lot of folks.
But you ran track at Burlingame.
Yeah.
Who was an influence there?
Oh, well, you got to say Obie O'Brien. Obie was someone who was a life coach as much as a track coach, and just a really big part of our lives. Really intimate, guide. Pete Roland, I want to mention too, the person who donated the track so long ago, to be running the smoke shop and take so much time out of his life and be part and just driving people wherever they needed to be. I can't tell you the things that he said to me on the side that just made me smarter by listening, saying, "Oh my God, I need to learn a lot more just by listening to him." So those two people, among others, Mr. Fahey, there's just a lot of just great people.
Yeah. So Ryan, I know that Carrie, your wife, is not in the audience tonight, so who was your girlfriend?
I was told that would not be asked.
Did you partake in any senior pranks?
What is the statute of limitations?
You're beyond it now.
I'll tell you this, we made the news and they didn't know it was us, and it wasn't illegal, I'll say that.
Okay, that's what it's going to be.
Well, we were told, the whole local town was told not to sell seniors any large amounts of toilet paper, and so we needed to find some, because need was a thing we interpreted that to be, so we found some at the airport.
Found some. Amazing what you can find at the airport. So Ryan, a senior in '95, it was closed campus, right? Where would you go after school to hang on the Ave? If you went to the Ave, where was one of your favorite places?
Yeah, I was a rule follower, so I kind of did the closed campus thing, but before at the record exchange is something I was thinking about.
Right.
3 different iterations of
Things like here, remember the record stage?
we spent a lot of time there.
George. Yeah.
Yeah, George, yeah, just a great guy, great place.
Ryan, you're graduating class '95. Who won the little big game that you graduated?
I didn't know that was
Yeah, okay.
We did live on Dwight, which we could tell who won because it would be jubilant one way or jubilant the other.
So you're telling me you don't know, right? Google it next time.
I do.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Ryan. Thank you. And Ryan, again, thank you for pitching tonight. You came in at the last minute, so thank you. Okay, here we go. Set your clocks. Good evening.
Hi, everybody. Oh, my goodness.
Lynn, I haven't asked a question.
Check my pacemaker.
Okay.
Love to know where you got that title.
Russ came up with it. Russ Cohen, right over here. Yeah. Okay, so Linda, you taught, I think I said 27 years you taught at Burlingame.
Yep.
What were those years that you taught there? What was the span, the year to year?
1980.
Into the mic, you're speaking to the crowd. Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
Jerry, show her how to bend that in there, yeah, okay.
Yes. Oh, good.
So Linda, years?
1987, the fall of 87 through the spring of 2014.
27 years, right?
And I came into teaching late.
What's that?
Pardon me for interrupting.
That's okay.
Because I hadn't finished my college degree and thought I was going to live the same life my mother lived. By the way, our mothers were friends at the Peninsula Tennis Club. And I thought I was going to join the PTA and I was going to be part of my kids' school, not as a teacher, but as a parent, and then got divorced. And so everything came crashing down and I had to go back to school and finish. And it was a long road. It was tough with 3 kids, being a single mom. So I didn't go, I had to do all that schooling, and so I didn't start until my son was a senior in high school. That was odd. My son was a senior, I was a student teacher in Glenn Morgan's classroom, and my daughter, Tara, was a sophomore. So it was just a lot going on.
Which reminds me of something. Who was the dean of girls back then? Was it?
No, we didn't have the Dean of Girls.
Wasn't your grandmother involved in something?
She not graduated, retired in 1969.
Okay, so long before you came along.
Well, I was a student here
Yeah.
then,
Oh,
and
okay.
that was awkward.
Right.
Because I graduated in 67.
Yes.
So that she was being the dean, it was awkward, but she handled it beautifully. She was
Yeah.
quite a woman.
Did you ever teach, were you around the same time, a fellow by the name of Vic Mancini was there?
Oh.
Save it for Jerry, okay, don't get carried away, it's just a question.
Mangini, how things have changed.
Yeah.
We had senior talent shows, and I and my little group, we decided we were going to do a dance with the lights, because that was when the lights were just these lights, this hippie stuff. Was just coming out, and so it was Frank Zappa, what would that be? Mothers of Invention. And so there was a line in there that said, smoking a banana. Well, Vic said, that's got to go. So you think smoking a banana and what happens now?
What did you teach at Burlingame? What classes did you teach?
English, surprisingly, and journalism due to this guy over here. He was such a mentor for me, Glenn Morgan. I feel so blessed to be able to have worked with him. And I miss him. I'm gonna crash your Tuesday breakfast. Now I know where it's being given.
Madeline, over the years, did you notice changes in dress codes and behavior and cultural changes?
It used to drive me crazy because the girls, it was Daisy Dukes that they were wearing towards the end of my tenure. And it did no good. The parents would say, I can dress my child any way I want. And then I would get into a perpetual argument with the editor of the school newspaper who said, I'm a woman and I can wear anything I want. And I said, that's true. However, boys are in a different place biologically when they're 18. And what about the male teachers? You know, anyway, so we went back and forth, and I think I lost.
As the years went by, was it harder to get students to participate in activities? Or they generally stay the
That's a
same?
good question. As far as well, no, they came up, in fact, Adam Klein came up with the Karma Club. You know, they would come up with these really odd clubs.
Yeah, like Homemakers Club? Yeah.
Yeah, and then stupid me, one of them came in, we want to start the WTF Club. I said, what does that mean?
Okay,
That's very nice.
so did you have a favorite place to hang on the avenue, you know, either as a student or as a teacher?
As a student, the coffee shop, what was that called?
Nelson's?
Nelson's, yeah, they had the best.
Does anybody here remember Nelson's?
And
I remember Nelson's, right? Big breakfast,
and of
$5
course,
or something.
Hal's was the ultimate boy-watching place. Oh my God, I love the french fries and the Coke. Okay, I mean, Coca-Cola. I'm just not good at this. I've so much going on in my
I
mind.
got a couple of softballs coming your way right now, okay? So,
God, yeah.
I'm gonna lob a couple in there. Are you still connected to VHS?
Oh my goodness, yes. I'm the historian and I'm in the process of writing the history of Burlingame High School. And I just cannot wait to get people's stories. And so I've set up a Gmail specifically for that purpose. Because there's just so many wonderful people here in this community. And this community is a strong community because we do have such a strong history. And the Historical Society, which I really didn't know much about, is just amazing at keeping us together, and there's so few of you. You know, Joanne and Jennifer and
Russ,
Leslie.
Leslie.
Russ.
Yeah.
You know, you put in so much time.
You do, they do a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, we didn't talk about my favorite students. This guy, that guy.
Coming.
Adrian, were you in my class? Yeah, I don't think you were either.
So Linda, who were your favorite students? Okay.
Well, Anna, Ryan, Aaron. Everybody was my favorite student. You know, I loved my students, and that's why I brought this show and tell. I had this wonderful student who made this for me. His name was Leo M. I can't remember what the M stood for, but he was a great kid. And then I picked it up one day, it's broken. I picked it up one day and it says, "Bitch, fat hoe." Pretty much sums up what it's like to be a teacher. They love you.
That was a compliment back then. Oh, yeah, bitch, that hoe.
Linda, did you have Diana Abron?
Yeah, I did, and she didn't remember. She was always hanging out with Glenn, and so I was there one summer, and yeah, she didn't like me very much. I don't think she wrote this, but she had come from an AP class into a senior CP class, and I don't think she cared for it very much, but that's fine. She was very nice after she graduated. And I actually found my registration that showed her name, so I actually had her, and she earned a B.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody I said that.
No.
Okay,
Okay.
you know, students though, there's just, I want to mention Stephanie Woodrow.
Okay.
She was the editor of the Bee. She went on to, she went back east and became a journalist. She really did a remarkable job as a journalist, but then decided that wasn't for her, and she became a therapist. She went to Johns Hopkins and did the 4 years and her master's, and she's done very well. I also brought this show and tell, The Bridges We Will Build, Casey LeCompte Renfro. So this is many of our students have gone on to write books. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So I'm really proud of them. You know, there just are so many. Oh, Randy Williams, may I say something?
Yeah.
I know my time's got to be.
No, you're good, you're good.
Randy Williams was an African-American campus aide who worked here for years, and he graduated from Sarah High School. And, you know, it must have been tough. He was the one that had to mete out the discipline and with all these white kids, and here he was, you know, black man, and he had polio, and one of his arms was deformed. You wouldn't know that at all. He was the greatest guy, and so I would invite him in to my AP class when we were reading Beloved, so that he could explain to them the way San Mateo and Burlingame were. That apparently black people were not allowed to even be on Burlingame Avenue unless they were maids or chauffeurs. It was just unbelievable.
What year would that have been?
50s, 40s, probably since Burlingame came into existence. It was part of the real estate contract that if you could not sell to a person of color, and maybe Jewish people also. There were no tabernacles or temples, thank you. Not yeah, and Burlingame was white. I'm sorry, it was white. And so Randy came in and elucidated them on what it was like to live. He grew up in San Mateo, a portion of San Mateo, that was a place where the blacks could buy a home. And he, you know, looking at these kids who were so smart, and they were affluent, and to hear these stories that was really, I think, probably painful for him to tell, but he didn't portray himself as a victim. He portrayed himself as that's the way it was. And I'm glad it's not that way anymore.
Yeah.
So, and I wanted to mention Randy Williams. Oh, and he and I put on the Soul Food Friday in February. We had a ball doing that. And of course, here's blue-eyed blonde McLaughlin. I was the BSU advisor.
BSU meaning Black
Oh,
Student
sorry,
Union.
Black Student Union, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I loved it, and I found it an honor to hold that position, but, you know, I couldn't relate to them the way Randy could, but Randy he had lunch duty, so he couldn't lead it. But I really made some good friends. One time went to, one of my students invited me to her wedding, and I went to the wedding shower, and I was the only white person there, and I don't think they knew what to do with me at all. So they were wonderful, though. We were fine after a glass or two of wine. So I think, but there are so many more kids.
Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to say one more activity.
Sure.
The Gay Straight Alliance.
Which one was that?
Gay Straight Alliance. Oh, do you remember when that started?
Michael Cord
Yeah.
and another teacher started it back, I would say.
Was it in your day?
I don't recall.
No, I would say probably 97.
GS?
That's not me.
Yeah. It still exists now.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but this was new. This was like cutting edge. And guess who turned up? Was the teachers. Because we wanted to support, you know, the whole idea of what it must be like. We wanted to let them know, you're okay that you're gay, you know, and again, I think now how far, you know, we've come, but that was huge.
I'd say that's pretty progressive.
It was, and so we were told very diplomatically not to come anymore because the students wouldn't come. Okay, I'm done.
Linda Vickery McLaughlin, you didn't have much to say tonight, so thank you very much.
Okay, I appreciate it. Oh, and here's, this is what I did that I loved, the Burlingame Bee. And here's Panthers deliver CCS championship
You know what, that reminds me, who won the Little Big Game last year?
2004.
What's that?
14, we did.
Okay, good girl, good, very good. Good evening, Jerry. Good evening, Jerry. Your chance to say good evening, Mark.
How you doing, Mark?
Okay, good, good.
Glad to be here.
Jerry, you lived in Burlingame most of your life, right?
All my life.
Yeah. Jerry, one man Genie Way. One man Genie Way. How does that sound?
It's interesting.
Yeah?
It is.
Jerry, there might be some folks in this crowd tonight that don't know where One Man Genie Way is. Can you tell them where One Man Genie
It's
Way
the
is?
address of Burlingame High School. It's right, the little arch that goes right around the school.
What year was it dedicated?
Oh, 88 maybe.
No, it was
Yeah,
later.
90s.
It was later, I know.
It was like
I think my dad was 87, so
Maybe 2004 or 5.
Yeah.
No, it was while I was
at
at
least 10
school.
years.
Was that-
It was while I was at school, so it was 98, 99.
Possibly.
You know, I gave you these questions earlier too. Okay. No surprises here. You pull up that, I guess you, I don't know, okay, anyway. Your father, Vic, taught, coached, and was dean of boys. He was also the man who brought the Vic stick, which we'll talk about when I get to Rusty, to Burlingame High School. What year was your dad, you know, at Burlingame High School?
Oh, he was there probably in the late 40s all the way up until the early 90s or late 80s. But he dedicated his life to that school.
Yes, he did.
And one thing that really touched me is what the young lady in the class of 2022 said about her teachers who love their students, and that warmth is still there. And I remember that about my dad, because he truly did love his students. There were always kids, former students, former athletes at our house. And they would stop by, and a lot of them became cops. and they'd stop by. I remember the kids would run down Burlingame Avenue, jumping over the hedges and the fences to, like a extracurricular track practice at our place. But, yeah, he's truly loved Burlingame High School.
Did he start as a coach or a teacher, or both?
He was, I think, a history teacher, but he was a coach. And he stopped teaching fairly soon when they gave him the athletic director's job. And that was it. But he was a track coach when a time when, 125 guys would turn out for track. And I remember my fondest memories of Burlingame High School is definitely that track and that football field. The smells of autumn, the adhesive tape and the atomic bombs and the wet grass. The thud of the shot put, on the ground. That starter's pistol of my dad's.
Yeah.
I used to pick up all the cartridges
Yeah.
through there. I must have gone to every JV varsity athletic contest that I could go to from the time I was 7 until I went to high school.
Yeah. So why didn't you go to BHS?
Well, Mark, I'm sure you know.
Jerry went to Sarah, in case you...
I was a disciplinary problem. I wouldn't say I was a problem child, but one thing you didn't want to get in our house was caught, believe me. So he just, it wouldn't have worked. One of us would have gone home without any teeth, and since my dad already had dentures, it probably would have been me. But yeah, it was never a problem in there. I would have liked to have gone to school there, but I was going to Sarah.
What was it like being the son of a dean while you were in another high school? You must have heard things.
I'll tell you this, I was always concerned that the kids would pick on me, but never did I ever see anything but courtesy and friendship and a positive attitude from the kids from Burlingame High School.
Yeah.
Absolutely, never an issue. A lot of fun up here, the rec dances, rec center, the band, the band, with a great picture of the band and the On Wisconsin and the Panther song.
Yeah.
Remember, I was more of a familiar with Panther background than I was with Padre background.
Well, you did a little quarterbacking over it.
A little bit, I said people would say none at all, but maybe a little bit. But there's some great times at Burlingame High School. The gym, the old gym, the old pool. Your grandmother was great. She was quite a lady. And my dad and her were chums. They were really chums. But there were a lot of good things about Burlingame High School. The little big game, the decorations, the all-day affair that was, and then the big Thanksgiving dinner, starting at 3 or 4 o'clock. Those are great old days.
I think those Thanksgiving games, when Burlingame played San Mateo, were the best, right? They moved now to it, still in November, but it's not on Thanksgiving Day anymore. It's kind of a shame in a sense. It was wonderful, yeah. So your dad was also 5-time mayor, and I think he was 25 years on city council.
Yeah, he spent a lot of time, he dedicated his life to the city of Burlingame, and truly a public servant. He got involved by some of the city fathers, the current city councilmen. Your grandfather, Archie?
Yeah.
Archie and Don Raven.
Bill Crosby.
McLean, Bill Crosby, Archie Martin. All these guys are long-time guys from Burlingame that were very close. Most of them were Rotarians, I believe.
Yeah.
And they really got together to build their community. They would come from different backgrounds, and they put all those, fraternal organizations aside and work towards the betterment of the community. Cooperation and compromise. What a concept, huh? I think a lot of those men and a lot of those ideas, and there were great women too. Don't forget Charlotte Johnson, who was a mainstay, right down from our neighborhood, right around the corner down there. But I could go on for
I know you could.
hours.
You did it, 3 hours at my house, I know.
Only 2 beers.
Last year, yeah. Okay, so Jerry, what year was your dad inducted into the San Mateo County Hall of Fame?
Gosh, you got me on the
Yeah, I know, right.
But that was, A while ago.
Yeah, it was. So, one last little remembrance of Vic, if you don't mind. Can you just tell us the story of how he found Burlingame and came to live here?
Well, I know that he was here with what his job was to find entertainment for the United States Army Air Corps troops that were out here stationed at Mills Field, which is now the San Francisco International Airport. Now, I'm not sure exactly how it happened, but he was either coming from the north towards Mills Field or up from the south towards Mills Field. But he got waylaid and got off into the hills of Burlingame.
But he had a caravan with him, right? Did he have, yeah.
He led everybody the wrong
Right,
way.
he had a whole squad.
He actually got to where he was supposed to go, but I can remember when they cut the Mills Estate, when they built the roads up there, my dad used to take me up there and we'd get fossils from the ground that was being dug. And he said that he came out here and fell in love with the dairy lands out here on the hills of Burlingame. And he was, he died on the spot that he fell in love with when he came out here from Burlingame. He never looked back on it. Those are some great stories of how he met my mom. Another interesting family, the Gates family, was very instrumental in getting the two of them together. But that's a whole nother story.
Yes, it is.
But Burlingame was a special place. The coaches from Burlingame High School would come over to our house on Friday night before the football game, and my mom would just lay it out there. Bruna was a cook too, but the spaghetti dinners with Light Cap and Bob Booker.
Shocky.
Elmer Shockey? Elmer Shockey, when my dad was indoctrinated into the Hall of Fame, he mentioned Elmer Shockey. I think Elmer gave my dad they might have offered him the football coaching job there, but he didn't take it. He stuck with track. But Shockey was a name I remember from my dad. And there's some great men and women from Burlingame for sure. Tremendous history.
Don't forget the Vic stick before you go.
Vic stick. I was going to bring a Vic stick, but I didn't think it was appropriate bringing a weapon with a member of Congress downstairs.
I was summoned to your father's office once.
For a wall-to-wall conference?
I think I was a freshman. And I'm sure I don't remember why, but it was interesting because, first of all, he has a kid come up into the classroom that's already going. And he says, Kent Lauder, Vic wants to see you in his office, and I have to stand up in front of all the kids and skulk out and go into his office. So I'm just like, I don't know. And I'm sitting there. But what's interesting, instead of him just leaning over and just starting to get into me, he turns around and he starts typing on his typewriter. In other words, he knew I was nervous as hell. And, he just kind of talked a little bit. I'm sure he wasn't typing anything. But in other words, he realized, and he kind of showed a kindness, he said, okay, and don't do it again, or whatever it was.
Did you take any candy from his desk? Did you ever take any candies from his desk? He always had the hard candies on his desk.
That's right. I'm not I don't remember a whole lot. But, I can see why he got a lot of respect.
Jerry doesn't remember a lot either, Ken, so no worries. Jerry Mangini, thank you very much. All right, big guy, you're going to round us out here, Rusty Newsom, 1974 graduate of Burlingame High and the current president of the Burlingame High Alumni Association. So Rusty joins us from San Ramon with his wife, Diane, the former Diane Ragazzino. We'll let you tell that story in a minute, too.
Sure.
So, Rusty, you have a pretty cool Burlingame High family tree. Why don't you tell everybody about the family tree?
Yeah, Well, my mom graduated in 1948, and she knew...
So wait a minute, guys. 1948 was the year I was born, which is like, I'm 74 years old now, so 48, that's amazing to me.
What's amazing is she's still alive. She's got a mind as sharp as ever. She can recall all her past glories. She worked at House. She was a person at House, and she's got a lot of stories about that. We would like to have had her here, but she's in Minnesota with my brother Tim. She's had almost every cancer you can have, and she's knocked them all down. So she's cancer-free today, finishing her last chemo last April for her 92nd birthday.
Wow.
And she's out going to the football games where my brother coaches out in Minnesota, so she's still active. So she's great. I'm the oldest of 5, and my dad went to Jefferson High, which we really didn't like Jefferson High, but yeah, he was an Indian, I guess is what they're...
The Warriors?
The Warriors, yeah, maybe it was Warriors. But anyway, that's a different story. But they moved out here in Burlingame. Well, my mom moved out here up on Mills Avenue, which is just a little further north of Broadway. And so I'm the oldest of 5. I graduated in 74. My brother Steve, my late brother Steve, he passed away in 2004, but he graduated in 76. He was the captain of the football team in 75. They did win their little big game. And then my sisters, Sandy and Joanne, were cheerleaders for Burlingame. They graduated in 77 and 79. And then my youngest brother, Tim, graduated in 81. And he's the first Panther to have his football jersey retired several years ago. Coached here at Burlingame as well. Before he moved to Minnesota to be a coach and a teacher. Very reminiscent of John DeVos, who was his influence here at Burlingame. He's I would say a mini DeVos, but he's bigger than DeVos right now. So DeVos would be a mini me and my brother Tim. He weighs 280 pounds, and yeah, he's pretty big. So that's my family.
Who was principal when you were at Burlingame?
Dr. Richard Williams. Yeah.
He was the one and only for your 4 years there.
Yeah, I didn't really, the only interaction I had with him was getting my diploma on stage at San Mateo.
Yeah.
So that was right.
Yeah. Probably a little bit more interaction with maybe the dean of boys, Vic Mancini.
Exactly, and most people thought, Vic, Jerry, most people assumed that your dad was the principal. The gentleman who was principal was largely
inactive. Yeah, absolutely.
He had a good deal.
My relationship with Mr. Mangini is really different from a lot of the kids, especially the ones that were in my class, because I used to mow his lawn. I was a neighbor. My mom was friends with him. So I knew the gentle Dick. He had that look that could scare the heck out of anybody. But when he smiled, his smile was the most engaging, warm smile that you would ever see, right? And that's the guy I knew. I used to deliver papers and mow the lawn, and he would make sure I didn't cut any corners. But you know, living down the street, I knew Jerry growing up. He was a few years older than me. I was a little guy back then, growing up with the Lou Casey's, the Houts, the Hanchies, the Chevries.
We all grew up in the Victoria Park area of Burlingame. Lion Ho, whatever, so that was Victoria Park is what we called it.
Leslie House, yeah, we had a nice, Jacobson's, I mean, go on and on. Really nice group, and all the other guys took me in. I was kind of the Rudy of the park, right? I was trying to get in on that game. So, yeah, I just love that area. And Vic Mangini was a friend.
What was the Vic stick for folks in here that don't know that?
Yeah, Vic stick was something, I guess if you ever got in trouble with having to do, I guess you'd see the guys that got arrested on the side of the freeway, they would be using sticks with nails on them to pick up garbage on the side. Vic had that idea around the Burlingame campus. So if you got in trouble in detention, his idea, rather than have you come and stay after school, I will not do this again, was to go around and pick up the garbage around the school and help do something to benefit the school. And if anybody saw you out there with the big stick, everyone knew you were in trouble.
Did they ever have big sticks for the girls? Was it just guys that got the big stick?
You know, I never actually, that would be a good question for my wife. She got in trouble a lot when she was.
Yeah, but there was only a girls then.
You're only in one, so, okay. Yeah, so I never actually saw the girls with any of the big stick.
How about favorite teachers and coaches?
Yeah, so, you know, I was an athlete at Burlingame, so I always had a PE 6th period. And because of that, we were always getting out early in 5th period. And so, you know, didn't get to really do a full curriculum at Burlingame. Mr. Harrison made me pay for that by taking...
That was Bud Harrison?
Bud Harrison. He made me take U.S. history all over again my senior year because I didn't read Uncle Tom's Cabin. And that was the only reason he flunked me. So I got him back because the next year when I was playing varsity football, I had Bob Hooker and I didn't have to go to class. So that was kind of like a good thing. But my favorite teacher at Burlingame actually is sitting on the dais today. This person I had for multiple classes, one of which was yearbook, and I was a sports editor for his yearbook for 1974 senior class. I also had yearbook my junior year. I was also a writer for the Burlingame Bee for a couple of years as well, and then I was a commissioner for the Block B that got to sign the certificates for those that won the Block B. But Mr. Morgan, who celebrated her birthday yesterday, I want to congratulate you on your birthday. Happy birthday. Yeah, he was my favorite teacher because of the way he relayed it to us. And the thing that I enjoyed the most about Mr. Morgan, I keep calling him the same thing. Let me tell you this story, because I liked him so much, I invited him to our wedding. He liked Diane, he liked me, so he came to our wedding with his wife and his kids, and they had a great time, and it was great to see him. And so I didn't see him for like 20 years, right, because we kind of moved on to San Ramon and started a family. And we went to our 30th class reunion that Jeff Teddy-Ocean put on at the Hyatt. And he did a really nice thing where we got together out at the pool before the big thing so people would get acquainted, have a couple drinks, and get reunited. And I see Mr. Morgan across the wall, the way there, and I said, "Hey, Mr. Morgan!" And he's looking at me, he comes over and goes, "Rusty, please, call me Glenn. I'm only a couple of years older than you." But I was raised in that era where we called everybody Mr. and Mrs., and I still fall back on that. So, happy birthday, Glenn. Yeah, and thank you for being a good teacher. So, my other favorite teacher was the guy I hated the most at Burlingame. Was a guy named Mr. Housick. Yeah, I hated that guy. When I got that class, and I told everybody, I had to take science, I got this guy Housick because it fit the schedule I needed for football, or basketball, or baseball. And everybody in my group said, "Oh, dude, you didn't get Housick." I said, "Yeah, why? Oh my God, that's the guy, that's the one I realized, oh geez." So I get to the class, and the first thing he says, and he wore a suit every day, and he says, "Look, this is how it's going to work. I'm going to grade you on your note-taking, on your tests, and on the homework. And that's it. If you just do the note-taking and the homework, you'll pass my class." And I thought, okay, I can do that. But you're going to have to be here every day to do that. So every day I took, and he was going to grade the notebooks. So you're going to turn that in at the end. So I took notes, copious notes, wrote everything down, and then I did the homework. And then the test came, and actually getting the questions right on the test. And I went, "Oh, that son of a gun, he's teaching me." He taught me to take notes, do the homework, and of course the test was not hard. So that was the guy that really kind of put it in perspective for me, because as I went on, I worked for IBM for 20 years, and everybody there said, oh, Rusty takes the best notes. So I was always a note taker when it came to big meetings that they wanted to do for QBRs and quarterly business reviews and things like that. So Mr. Housing, I applaud him for actually not letting me get away with anything. And then my other favorite teacher was John DeVos. I had him for driver's ed, if you can believe having him for driver's ed. He was a baseball teacher, coach, and a PE coach. But I think he had to fill it in, and I took it later. My age is a little later, right? So I was like a junior when I took it. And and by then my nickname was Nooter. So he'd say, hey Nooter, let's go, we're going to Arby's to get a roast beef sandwich. And he'd throw me the keys, and that was awesome because that was the furthest you could drive for driver's ed, going all the way to Middlebury, you go to Arby's, pick up some roast beef sandwiches, and come out. So he was my other favorite teacher for that reason. Going into coaches, because I did get to play with Paul Booker and John DeVos for basketball and baseball, and Mr. Milano, Coach Milano, and Coach Chrisman. So I really, and athletes who go through programs with good instruction, it's just like a student going through with good teachers and learn. I hear so many good things about Mr. Guazin for people that took, when he passed, people said he was instrumental in them going on to college and pursue college career. And it's the same thing with coaches. The impact that they have on students is when you get a good one, sometimes you overlook that, but it's like teachers as well. It's so impactful for how you develop going forward. How do you work with teamwork? I think playing on a sport with other guys and relying on everybody, it's kind of like doing boot camp for the Army or something. You have to pull for the same thing, and if you have somebody who can really drive that home, these guys did. I was fortunate to have Milano, who went on to coach at Cal Berkeley as the varsity baseball coach for several years. Terry Chrisman, who played in the pros, came to Burlingame, coached for a long time. We won back-to-back championships my junior and senior year, so Burlingame always had a good baseball program, and I benefited from that coaching. Yeah. I went on to play until I was 56. I stopped after several surgeries because my orthopedic surgeon at Stanford said, when I asked him the last time, the only non-athletic injury I had was lifting a box spring to my son at UC Santa Cruz up on his balcony, and I tore my rotator cuff in my shoulder. And I went to Gary Patton, the 49ers, and Joe Montana's doctor, because that was my doctor, and I said, Gary, what the frick? You know, I tore this lifting up a box spring, and he says, Rusty, you're old. He goes, I tore my rotator reaching in the back, seeing my car to get my briefcase. So I said, all right. She was done with the 7 surgeries, so I said, okay, I'm done. So.
Yeah. Well, anybody that's looked at your Facebook page knows that you take copious notes because that thing goes on and on.
Yeah,
it's amazing to me. Yeah. So I just wanted to talk, anybody here remember the rec dances that used to be right here in this building downstairs, the rec dances, right? They were a big deal for the longest time. And tell us about a rec dance.
Yes, I was a very shy guy. So I didn't have any girlfriends in school. I liked a lot of girls, but I just stayed away from everybody. I went to parties and drank milk. Half gallon milk I drank at the party senior year. So that was my gig. So I would go with my buddies to the dance to see who was playing. If Tower of Power or Santana would show up to play like they did in the old days. And we'd just hang out and watch everybody else. So my senior year for the Valentine's dance, this girl sitting across from me came over and asked me to dance. I told her, oh, thank you, I don't dance. And she said, oh, come on. I said, no, really, I really don't dance. And she just grabbed my hand and pulled me out on the dance floor. So she continued to dance around me, holding my hand. I continued to stand there going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Then the song ended, I thanked her, and then I excused myself, and I went and hid in the bathroom downstairs here. And then West Barrington, a couple of guys go, dude, that girl's still outside waiting for you. So I went outside, and she's like, come on, you're going to dance. So I'm like, oh, geez. So I went out, stood there with her again, and we've been together ever since. So that was in 1974.
That's a great story. That's a great story. Yeah, Diane, congratulations. That's a great story. But Rusty, you are president of the Burlingame High School Alumni Association, and that's kind of what this evening is about, is kicking off the 100-year anniversary next year. You want to say a few words?
Yeah, we are so excited. This day is starting to actually come. It's like a wedding, right, that you've been planning on and thinking about for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And it's finally starting to come. In fact, if I can just introduce some of the people that are on the board.
Please do.
To stand so you guys can acknowledge the board. Linda McLaughlin. Glenn Morgan. Glenn is our advisor. Helping us on the yearbook program that we're doing. In the back, we have Glenn Lebrano.
Lenny.
Of the year from last year. Next to him over here is Jeff Tadiosha, our vice president. And then we have Jan Privatera over here. She's on our reunion committee, and she's heading up the committee that's going to put on the event that's going to be here at the community center at the end, our Saturday night final event. And then my wife Diane, who's secretary, and she does photography and the group as well. But we've been talking about a skeleton idea of what we want this thing to look like, and the general theme is really for people to come back home, right? Because we're really appealing to the older classes, the 50s, the 60s, 70s. Those are the ones that are really going to come and enjoy the 100 years. We'd love to have the classes from the 20s to also participate to see what's going on, but the real crux is really the nostalgic feel of what Burlingame meant back in the day. And that presentation you did here to show the school is progress is a great idea for what we could use on one of our events on Saturday before we do school tours and things like that. So right now, it's still a work in progress. We have several committees that are still in the process of defining what things are going to look like and how it's going to go. But the crux of it is October 13th and 14th, 2 days, Friday and Saturday. Friday's going to be a couple of different events that are already scheduled. One is the football game, which will be here. We're going to look at having some Hall of Fame inductees that are going to participate in honorary captains that will be announced at the game. We're working with the city. The city is being a big help too. Jeff and Laura Hesselgren have been working with the city group to get their participation, and they're offering ideas for doing a block party, which we're negotiating to do off of Burlingame Avenue, which would be a really cool thing. Which would include some bands that we've already been talking to that are from the alumni. So everything's going to be alumni driven. Everybody that's going to be doing anything is going to be part of the alumni that are giving their time back. So that's going to be Friday night. There's also discussions which, as a board, we have to vote on. But there may be a ball tournament in the morning for those that want to choose to participate in that. And then Saturday is going to be an event at the school where we're going to let people come back, see the school in the daylight. We're going to try to recreate a big giant picture that you guys all participated in on your senior yearbooks, where you got that picture on the inner sleeve. We're going to try to do something like that, where we get the big picture. We're going to have dignitaries and teachers that are going to come back to speak. The tours are going to take place. We have some other special things we're working on that are really cool that I think will add to the fun. And then there might be some things to do that we're working on. We're just figuring out that part still.
Yeah.
And then that evening will be the final event, which will be here at the rec center, or at the community center, downstairs with music and food, and you know, one of my little catchphrases is walking through the park and reminiscing from the old song. But that's the general theme here, is really just reconnecting, letting everybody get a chance to come back and kind of relive their high school days, right? And that's what I think this is all about for the 100th year.
I think it's pretty cool that you're doing this from San Ramon, making these trips over here all the time, getting together with everybody.
Well, it's
Not exactly a hop, skip, and a jump, so.
Yeah, we have this whole group, and there's plenty more that aren't here tonight. And I'd like to acknowledge one other person that I missed, was Terry Mailer, my mentor. She was the previous president of the Alumni Association for 6 years. She's been on the board for, I don't know, 20-something years. 400 years now. And she is still a go-to person to go ask for help and how do we do things. So Terry's been a great instrumental part of this whole thing too. So thank you, Terry.
Rusty, by the way, is more than my mentee. He really took over and virtually saved the Alumni Association to what it is today.
Great, that's great.
We have apparel. We got the VHS 100th year. You can get this on North Face jackets, polo shirts by Nike. You can get your name on it. I put my number from baseball in here, but everyone thinks that's my graduation year. Which is actually a good idea. Put your graduation year on your sleeve if you want. You can do that. But our website is burlingamealumni.com, and you'll see newsletters, memoriam of people who might have passed from your class, so you can catch up on who's still around. There's activities. We do bocce ball tournaments, golf tournaments. There's a lot of different activities that take place. You can find it on the website. So if you go to burlingamealumni.com, and more information about this event is going to be posted on there, how to sign up and all that.
In the yearbook.
Oh, in the yearbooks. I have to really say, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Glenn Morgan. Glenn has been very instrumental in helping us get the yearbook program going. We are digitizing all the yearbooks on the website, so people who have lost their yearbook or they don't want to have the paper, they can just go there. It's so cool. You can flip the pages on your iPad. It'll sound like you're turning pages. It'll look like it when you're flipping the page. You can see everybody's yearbook that we have access to, and we're getting access to more and more. I have a lady coming this Saturday bringing the 1923-24 yearbook. It's the original yearbook. It's on a rope bound, so I'm picking that up on Saturday night. So that is a real, I did not think we would get that, but the word is getting out and we're getting some participation back, so it's really good.
I failed to mention that my mom graduated in 1942, and I thought I had lost it, but after she passed at age 92 at a place right off of Broadway, we thought we had lost it, but I found it. I had put it on a bookshelf, but unlike today's, you would notice that there's no way to tell what this object is. I respectfully would like Rusty has had this, Jeff and
As it goes down.
and I've been working, but there are more books to be done, and it's an amazing thing to see this, particularly with the commercial sites often try to sell you your book back, and here it's free of charge, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
See it.
And one last plug, I'm sorry.
No, I'm so for it, that's why you're here.
This, I think the group is proud of. A lot of schools acknowledge a Hall of Fame for athletes, right? And that's nice, and I appreciate it, and I was honored to be inducted myself, and coaches also get put in, but I'm always wondering why it's limited to athletes, and why it's not students who went on to do things that are appropriate and should be recognized, and why not teachers? And so, since the pandemic really put a dent on some of the plans that we had to introduce back in the beginning of 2020, one of those was to create a Hall of Fame for distinguished alumni. which will now bring in the teachers, bring in the students that have gone on to do things that help the school. This will be a way for people that are part of the Alumni Association to be recognized in this Hall of Fame, for students that are giving back to the school as well, and as well for the teachers. A couple of teachers that we have nominated that were going to go in the first round had passed away, Mr. Gosden and Mr. Christensen. And it's just tragic that that happened and we couldn't do it because of the pandemic. So we're going to have a bigger event. It's going to expand to cover a couple of years to get these people recognized, even the ones that have passed away. We're going to put them in the hall so we can get this recognition going. And so you're going to see more announcements on that. We're just about ready to announce those candidates. And we're looking for a date sometime in February or March for that one. But that's going to start acknowledging distinguished alumni. So I think that's a really good one. Proud of that one.
Yeah, that's a great thought. Great.
Rusty, Roland Christensen did know that I told him, I went down to see him and told him that he was to be honored. And so he seemed to understand. He had a couple of strokes, but he was my master teacher.
Yeah.
So,
My favorite.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, thanks.
Besides
That's good to hear that.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, he was a wonderful man. And Mr. Boston, of course, passed away last year, and
Mr. Appleby, a couple of years
Mr.
ago.
Appleby is also gone. Yeah, and Mr. Firpo.
Yeah, Frank, yeah.
Folks that meant a lot.
Yeah, yeah. So we want to honor them, and we want to continue honoring those that are still here. So,
Great.
Thank you.
It's wonderful. So we have a few minutes before we break this up. I have a really nice cordless mic that we can pass around if you have any questions for the panelists. Anything comes to your mind, if you want to share a memory, a high school memory of Burlingame, feel free.
Can we give a round of applause?
Absolutely. I was going to say that to the end, but we can do it now.
I do have one suggestion for a band. I don't know whether, I forgot to mention Chris Jones and John Payne.
I did contact Chris.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so he's put it on his calendar, but they're getting paid now.
Right.
And I'm trying to get people to do this, donate. But, yeah, he's working
Speaking
to
of
see.
Chris Jones and John Payne, both graduates, have had a band. These gentlemen have, actually, Chris told me the other day that for the first time in his life, he's actually making a living. Wow. He's always had to have a day job. And his mother was our librarian, and John Payne's mom taught math here. So it's a nice feeling. Their band is called Wolf Jet, and they live in
Santa Cruz Mountain.
Santa Cruz Mountain. So that's as far. I don't want to say anything more specific than that, but that's John lost his home to. He and his wife lost their home in the last fire. It swept them. So they're rebuilding, and John's playing drums in the band, and Chris, of course, is the main.
Yeah, he's a character.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I like him.
wonderful guy.
Well,
He
good.
has a lot of hair, just like you always did, Rusty. And the hair is still one of your best assets. Besides your dancing, it's still.
Yeah. Dancing's the same.
Can I ask a question, Mark?
You may.
A lot of classes are planning on having mini reunions. I know that Jan probably is in charge of all of that, but, so the sooner you can get the schedule out of what is planned, so that we can work around that, would be wonderful.
Yeah, we've done that through Classmates, which I hate that site, but, because if you guys are on Classmates, they don't benefit Burlingame at all. It's all a money grab for themselves. But I joined so I can get on and tell people, get off this site, anyone to our site. But I put out a invite. I wanted to test it, so I wrote everything and filled it all out and said, okay, let's see how it looks. Bing, went out to 8,142 people. And I went, oh my God, I wasn't thinking it was going to send right now. So I went and they said, oh, and if you want to set a reminder, you can go over here. So I said, okay, how does that work? I said, all right, I'll fill this out for a reminder to do maybe a month or two later. Bing, went right out. So people got the invite and the reminder within 2 seconds. So, yeah, so now I'm dealing with the overflow of people because they're all coming back through my classmates, and I'm getting a lot of yeses, maybes, and nos. So I'm going to the maybes and saying, you know it's next year, not this year, because some people are confused.
better that we've got Pennsylvania.
And now the no's, I'm doing the same thing and finding out why. And it's very time consuming because, you know, I have to do each individual one. But here's the thing that I got out of it. When we put out the notification of what the plan was, in there was asked, we need someone who will represent your class so that you can be responsible to get your class, because we can't do it all, right? So a lot of people have responded saying, I'll do that, I'll be the person. So I have 67, 8, 9, 70 through 76, 7, I think, and then 81 and 82 so far committed.